Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ironworker Gaming channel. The fickle hands of RNG have bestowed upon me enough cipher decoders to acquire the second Festival of the Lost event-specific weapon, the Horror Story. Bungie has supposedly increased the drop rates on these, so if you haven't got your Horror Story yet, hopefully you have an easier time getting one. And in case you missed it, I did already snag a new Braytech Werewolf, and I do have a short review out for it that you can enjoy at your leisure. I'll put it up at the end of this video. But the Horror Story, like the Braytech Werewolf, is a re-released weapon, obtainable once before in the Festival of the Lost 2018 event, and originally based off the Year 1 Legendary Auto Rifle Origin Story. But this year the Horror Story has been updated to be upgradable to power level 1360, which will cover you for the next year. And it does have an updated perk pool with some recently introduced perks available. Both the Braytech Werewolf and the Horror Story are precision frame auto rifles, so a lot of things that we touched on in the Werewolf review will be touched on again here also. But even though they do share the same archetype, there are definitely some differentiating factors that make each weapon unique, and there are two things that I think make the Horror Story the superior weapon. So we'll take a look at if the Horror Story fares any better in the Crucible than the Werewolf did, by taking a look at its stats, perks, and damage numbers before putting it through its paces in PvP. If at any point during this video you find it helpful, useful, or enjoyable, the like and subscribe button are there for you to show your support, and this is always greatly appreciated. But with that, let's get into the review. Alright, Horror Story is a legendary kinetic precision frame auto rifle shooting at 450 rounds per minute with a base 32 rounds in the magazine. For the stats, like most other precision frame auto rifles, they are not great when compared to the weapon class as a whole, with the handling and stability being on the lower side even in the weapon archetype. Checking the hidden stats on light.gg, we have an aim assist value of 35, which is rather poor, a bounce intensity of 27, and this weapon does tend to pull to the left as it fires. The roll I got from this year's Festival of the Lost has both a rifle scope ST and a clean shot IS sight. More on these in a minute. For the magazine option, I've been running appended mag. In perk column 1, I did roll Outlaw, and in perk column 2, I have Sympathetic Arsenal. This is not an ideal roll by any means, but what else can we find on the Horror Story, and what should we be keeping an eye out for? Personally, I want to increase the physical range on this weapon archetype, and the zoom magnification is the best way to do that. So I really do like the rifle scope ST for the sight option, even though it knocks down the handling a touch. For the magazine option, I really think accurized rounds is the way to go. In perk column 1, for use in PvP, I'd be looking for Substance, simply so we can lay on the trigger a little bit longer if we get a kill and we won't need to reload our gun as often. But Killing Wind in certain scenarios can also come in handy. In perk column 2, Demolitionist can be a really nice thing to have on a kinetic auto rifle, especially in PvE activities. But my personal PvP preferred perk here would be Moving Target. But to be perfectly honest with you, I think we're kind of spinning our tires here, because if you have acquired this weapon in the past, or once you obtain it in this year's Festival of the Lost, you can pull a fully masterworked Horror Story out of your collections with Zen Moment and Rampage, which, in my opinion, trumps any of the perks that we just touched on. But let's hop into the damage numbers, and then we'll have a little chat about Horror Story. For the damage numbers, Horror Story will do 28 points of damage on a crit and 18 points of damage to the body, for an optimal time to kill of 0.93 seconds requiring 6 crits and 2 body shots, and a body shot time to kill of 1.47 seconds requiring 11 shots landed. For the range, Horror Story can deal full damage from 29 meters away. Past that, we will start to see damage fall off. But as I promised earlier, we would look at some sight options. That 29 meter optimal range is with the Clean Shot IS sight equipped, which is a very nice sight. It is completely open, completely transparent with no visual impediment. But if we try out the Red Dot 2 sight, our optimal range is pushed back a little bit to 31 meters. And if we equip the Rifle Scope ST, we can still be hitting for full damage from up to 39 meters away. That's an increase of 10 meters from the Clean Shot IS. And in the Crucible, this can be big for a precision frame auto rifle. If you did catch my Werewolf review, you probably remember me talking about how I wish it could reach out a little bit further, since it was coming in at around a 29 meter range also. With the Horror Story, I get my wish because of it having selectable scopes. If you remember, the Werewolf had barrel options instead of sight options, so there was no way to increase the zoom magnification to bump up that effective range. The physical range increase does allow us to keep clear of hand cannons and adaptive auto rifles' optimal range. which is extremely important since precision frame auto rifles are just flat out a weak archetype. We're at least giving ourselves a fighting chance to outplay or outposition the meta weapons. Also, having the ability to pull a fully masterworked roll with Zen Moment and Rampage out of collections is very nice. Since increased ability is never a bad thing, and a damage increasing perk on a 450 auto rifle is almost a must have. The Werewolf can also be pulled from collections with Zen Moment and multi-kill clip, but for PvP, I find Horror Story's Rampage to be the better option. But like I said earlier, precision frame auto rifles are weak in the Crucible. They're in a pretty bad spot. Neither the optimal time to kill or the body shot time to kill are all that competitive, and both are the worst in the entire weapon class. 0.93 seconds is slow, and it feels really slow, especially if you're stepping down from an adaptive frame auto rifle. This gives enemy guardians plenty of time to react to them taking fire. This allows them a window to break for cover, or turn on you and down you first in some scenarios. Getting the drop on the enemy doesn't outright secure a kill for you with a 450 RPM auto rifle, and that feels bad. But not only are the lower time to kill values causing you to down your opponents more slowly, they're leaving you out in the open for an extended period of time. When using an auto rifle, you're being asked to maintain line of sight and track your target if you want to hit your time to kill values. And especially if you're playing in the 6v6 game modes like Control or Clash, being out in the open, scoped in for almost a second is very dangerous. Also, Horror Story sits in an archetype with inherently poor handling, making this gun feel far less agile. And the aim assist value of 35 is awful. There is only one other auto rifle in the entire game with less aim assist. So you really gotta keep your reticle on target because you're not gonna get much help in landing your shots. So for the verdict, and is Horror Story a good option for the Crucible? Well, let me put it this way. If you're hellbent on using a 450 RPM auto rifle, Horror Story is not a terrible option. And a better option than the Braytech Werewolf in my opinion, simply because we can stretch the effective range. But this weapon archetype in general needs a whole lot of help. Regardless of which 450 RPM auto rifle you equip, they feel very out of place in the PvP landscape currently. There are a lot of stronger and more effective options out there. So given the current sandbox, I really can't recommend using Horror Story. These auto rifles just fall short in too many ways and we don't have enough means to boost up their viability. But if you did enjoy this video, both liking and subscribing are greatly appreciated. If you'd be interested in catching me live, I do stream on Twitch. You can head over there, look for Ironworker814, drop me a follow, and you'll get notified whenever I hop on. You could also look for Ironworker814 on Twitter, but the best way to get a hold of me is simply to comment down below. I'll be sure to get back to you. And with all that being said, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to check out this weapon review. You guys are awesome, and I will catch you on the next one.